Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Cordell McGarry. I'm a certification officer in the Department of Procurement Services, Certification Division. Our department pretty much responsible for the certification of minority and women-owned businesses. And the purpose of our session today is to talk about an innovative way to actually achieve certification through what we call our Professional Declaration of Eligibility program. To that end, okay. The Professional Declaration of Eligibility program, or as I say, PDE, is an innovative way of allowing qualified attorneys and certified public accountants to help us in the certification process by way of reviewing, verifying, and attesting that applicants for certification meet the requirements to become certified with the City of Chicago as either a minority-owned business enterprise or women-owned business enterprise, and in some cases under both programs. The process involves basically the certified public accountant or attorney actually assisting the applicant in preparing the application, doing a review and verification of eligibility, and then that process involves a full review of all documentation that's submitted by the applicant for certification, as well as the qualified CPA or attorney conducting a site visit. That results in an attestation by that qualified professional as to the eligibility of the individual to be certified. Okay. The eligibility basically includes under the Professional Declaration of Eligibility program includes new applicants for certification as a minority-owned business or woman-owned business. The firm would have to be involved in a trade that's not considered to be construction or a supplier distributor. The applicant should not have been one that had applied in the past and been denied for certification within the last 3 years, or likewise have withdrawn an application for certification within that same time frame. And finally, it should not be a previous firm that had been certified but graduated from the program within the last 3 years. And what I mean by graduating is that their size exceeded the local size standard for certification under the program itself. The time frame basically for certification, once it's prepared and submitted by the qualifying attorney or CPA and it's given to our office, basically we'll do a cursory review of the application and either concur or make a final decision within 10 business days. And in that regard, it kind of shortens up the process substantially with regard to certification. Just to give you a little bit of insight, the normal certification processing time, it averages 90 to 120 days depending on the seasonality and the type of application that we're looking at. So we're hoping that through this program that process will be a lot shorter because of the involvement of the attorney or CPA in the review and attestation of certification. So again, what happens next? The applicant will of course provide or yourselves will actually provide an online application. That's done through our website. It's chicago.mwdbe.com, and I'll repeat that again. Where you actually go online and complete the application, providing supporting documentation that's going to be used to actually make your recommendation or attestation of certification. Once that decision has been rendered, you submitted the application to the city and we've actually concurred with your decision. The file is subject to a full scope audit, and that's a random audit that could occur at any time generally within a year of the actual certification. Firms that are certified under the program as an MBE or a WBE are certified considered certified as all of our certification companies are. They're certified for a term of 5 years, and on an annual basis they must submit what we call no change affidavits and comply with all the other regulations concerning the eligibility as an MBE or WBE. The qualifying professional requirements for participation in the program involves the professional being either an attorney or a CPA, licensed in the state of Illinois for at least a 3-year period. We look for the professional to have not been convicted or found liable of fraud or for making false statements. There should not be any ownership or familial relationship with the firm that you're working with regard to certification. And we require that you have understanding of the regulations for certification as an MBE or WBE with the City of Chicago. We have regulations that are set aside for firms that are involved in what we call non-construction activities, and we have regulations for those firms that are involved in construction activities. So we require that you have an understanding of those regulations. As part of this program, we do not certify or endorse a CPA or attorney to prepare documentation for those vendors seeking certification with the City of Chicago. We do not have a list of preferred attorneys or CPAs. We encourage the applicant to seek out, on their own, the qualified individuals to actually to do work for them. The process for certification. I mentioned that online application has to be completed. That online application, again, the website for that is www.chicago.mwdbe.com. That leads you to an online portal where you can actually go in and perform the application. You would upload attachments that will be required as part of the documentation process, and it makes the process a lot simpler. Documents don't get lost, and it actually helps us to get the information to you our response a lot quicker. We require that you attach all supporting documents necessary for certification. They may involve 3 years of tax returns, for example, financial statements, licenses, and other qualifying documents that are used to support the applicant's certification and whatever trade they seem to do, that they want to be involved in. We also require that you as a professional submit and attach with the documents an affidavit, which is also attached to the file itself. Basically, that document, an affidavit, is what we call an attestation form, where you actually attest to doing the review and to that company's abilities to qualify as either MBE or WBE itself. So all the required forms that we're looking for, you can also find on our website. That's the www.cityofchicago.org/procurement section for the documents. We also require a site visit as part of the process. And I did mention that earlier. If you're interested in a site visit form, a sample form, give me a call. I'll be more than happy to provide you one. It could be a site visit, a report that you provide on your own. We just require that's also part of the documentation that you provide along with this. The documentation that we look for, examples of that, of course, would be contained in the application itself. But we're looking for contact information. We want the company to identify themselves, the type of business that they're involved in, the type of organizational structure that they have, and the type of certification that they're seeking as either MBE or WBE. And what I mean by that is to say that businesses are certified based upon an area of specialization. So, for example, let's say I'm a African American male. I want to own a business, so technically I qualify as an MBE, right? But I also perform a certain function or task, and I'm certified in that particular function. So if I'm a plumber, I'm a proprietorship, I'm Cordell McGarry the plumber, I'm going to identify myself as that to provide documentation to show that I can do that particular type of activity. So we're looking for ownership information. For example, if it's a proprietorship, probably an assumed name certificate would be sufficient. If we're talking about a corporation or LLC, we may be talking about documents such as corporate bylaws or operating statements that pretty much set up the company itself and identifies the owners. Key employees that are involved in the company, we would like to get information about that, of course, as well as information regarding the facility that you're involved in. We do certify startups, and I say that with respect to financial information. Many startups do not have financial information, but we do ask that they provide us with at least their opening balance sheet. But typical financial information would include tax returns of the business as well as financial statements. So we would ask for that as well. Licenses that are required for the applicant and the business are also required. For example, as an attorney, you no doubt have a license. If you're a real estate agent or broker, you have a license. If you're electrician, you're also licensed, so those documents are important to have, and that they also substantiate, the areas of certification that you're seeking to be certified in. We also ask for resumes, documents that will provide information as to the experience that you have, your affiliation with professional associations, any equipment or that you're using in conducting the work itself, leases to verify again your facility that you're operating out of. If you have contracts could be used to again provide demonstrated evidence of your ability to perform in certain areas of specialization. So if you have contract information, we will also look at that as part of the process. We would like to get information regarding past year and the prior years, at least 2 years of information. But again, we'll take pending contracts or invoices and purchase orders to help us to make that determination. Additional documentation in this process, which you'll also find on our website, would be we refer to as Attachment 1, which is an individual statement of ownership form. The individual statement of ownership form basically helps in providing the documents that I referred to earlier regarding ownership. So, for example, you're pretty much providing information regarding any stock that you may have in the company itself, information pertaining to your stake in the company, your ownership interest. It may also include a personal net worth statement, which we also include as attachment 2, as well as information that may be required to demonstrate your ability to perform in the category that you're seeking certification in. We also will ask that you complete a form called Attachment 5. It's IRS Form 4506T. It's a request for a transcript of tax returns. That information is normally requested and used from time to time to verify the information that you provide on your tax return itself. Okay, so once we receive the information, you're going to do a full review of the certification and firm. It will then come to us. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we do audit of the applications within generally a course of a year. Our goal is to, within the course of time, to review 100% of the files submitted. We do that to verify that pretty much that your attestation for certification conforms to our certification regulations. In the event that we find that the discrepancies in the decision that you've made as opposed to our regulations, the applicant can be subject to being decertified. With that in mind, we basically will look for, and during the course of the audit, just basically to see what sort of errors, if there are any, that would occur. These errors can result in penalties depending on the severity and type of errors. We have two categories for the most part. Technical errors that are not intentional on the part of the reviewer. Basically, these are errors that may be made that wouldn't have an impact on the certification outcome. Again, I refer to the certification regulations for our program as a guideline for making your recommendations. But to give you an idea of what a technical error, non-intentional technical error may be, that wouldn't affect the certification outcome, it very well might be submitting a tax return that's not been signed by the owners. We require that documentation, tax returns are properly signed by the owners and submitted. Or, for example, maybe we may ask for financial statements and you provide us with a P&L but not a balance sheet. Those could be technical errors that we know they weren't intentional. They could be an oversight. They didn't overall have an impact on the outcome, but we want to point them out. We'll let you know that, hey, this did occur. If it continues to occur, then of course that may result in additional training, and ultimately you could lose your eligibility if these type of errors continue. Intentional errors, however, a little different from a technical standpoint. If it was determined that there was an omission for purposes of certification and it's found out that this was done, you can lose your eligibility in the program and be subject to penalties. I'll try to give you an example of one. Could very well be a submission of a draft tax return as opposed to the final tax return. And the final tax return actually being the most correct one, the information on that final return could very well been of such magnitude that it could cause the firm not to be certified. If we find out that this was done intentionally, then it's something that could result in you losing your eligibility for the program itself. Okay. Then there's another category of errors called substantive errors. Again, we'll talk about substantive errors that are not intentional. The errors that did require affect the certification outcome. It wasn't intentional, but it happened. We have a size standard, for example, on businesses. I use the idea of the tax return. Let's say that it wasn't intentional that you submitted a draft copy instead of the final copy of the tax return, but the impact was still the same. The firm did not qualify. So, we look at that. It did affect the certification outcome. We're going to sit down and probably look at adopting a compliance integrity agreement to make sure that we monitor this, that it doesn't happen again. If it occurs on a second occasion, the professional could be barred from participation in the program itself, with us notifying the applicant, again, of a proposed certification. And again, if it's an intentional error, you will automatically lose eligibility. In some cases, we might require personal statements of net worth. We might require, in some of our programs, we require that the applicant has a net worth that doesn't exceed a certain threshold, say $2 million. Let's say, for example, the person submits an application and there's a number of assets that are left off. The personal statement of net worth, we find them maybe by other means, such as looking at a tax return. We find out that this was done intentionally to purposes of qualifying under the program. It will result in you automatically losing eligibility. Okay. In cases like this, and I know we're not going to have this situation, but I have to share it with you anyway. In cases like this, those penalties could involve the professional of record being referred to in our Inspector General's office. There can also be referrals made to the state's licensing board for discipline, as well as to our corporation counsel for prosecution under the city's false statement ordinance. But again, I don't think we have to worry about that, but just have to share it with you nevertheless.
Has that ever happened?
I want to say not since we've started this program. Historically, there have been situations, though, where professionals were involved in matters that resulted in perhaps the company losing their certification and perhaps the professional being referred to one of these bodies for final judgment, but not since our program started. We have not had that in that situation. So, in the event that there are any questions, however, about the program, we're always available to assist you. You can contact us. We're the Department of Procurement Services. We're at 121 North LaSalle, Suite 806. Our general number would be 312-744-4900. And I would say choose option 1 to reach a certification officer. We also have area assist agencies that are quite helpful in working with the applicants and can work with you as well with regard to any questions you might have regarding the application process. But again, I would defer to probably the best way to do this is to look at our regulations. They're posted on our website. They're invaluable in helping you guide you through the process. And again, we're available to help you with any questions that you may have along the way. That being said, I'd like to thank you, and if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to entertain them. Yes, ma'am.
So if a professional is working on this application for someone who's interested in MBE, is there information from the city about firms who've been denied or their application's been withdrawn or they've graduated from the program? Is that information available from the city? Because sometimes people tend to, not that they want to be not telling the truth, but maybe they aren't aware of.
To be guilty of any crimes or fraud, there is a list of firms that have been debarred on our system. You can research that. Typically when firms are denied, they may be excluded from applying for certification for about a year. There may be some, and firms that are denied are also offered an opportunity to appeal their denials. So if someone's applying for certification, and of course you're going to ask them to fess up, of course, but if you have any questions or concerns, just give us a call. We'll try to work with you.
So just last question, is it typical for the professional developing these forms to use the electronic system and do all of the work for the potential applicant? Or because from my experiences, like I set up my own account, so that account is just for me. So what's been traditionally the way that works?
Well, we're currently working with our system to afford a direct process by the professional to actually go in and prepare the submission. Right now, what we're doing is we're allowing you to go in under the applicant's application. So like, for example, your client's going to log in and set up a password. That client will also identify you, the professional, as a user, authorized user, to actually go in and assist in preparing the application and doing the review. During the course of that review, of course, you'll make sure all the documents are attached. You're going to review the work that they've done, and you will attach your own attestation as part of that application process. So we'll get it all together.
So is the professional working the city?
You'll be paid by the applicant. The applicant is going to contract with you to provide them assistance in getting the certification process.
Okay. How does it work in terms of marketing, or is there a standard fees that are worked out by the city of Chicago?
We have no control over the fees that you charge your client. Again, this is solely between you and the individual. Yes, there is an application fee of $20 to $50 that will be submitted at the time of application to the city of Chicago. That is an application fee that we charge. We charge that for all of our certifications, though, so that's a standard application fee. But the cost for your work with regard to the client is between you and the client.
So the professional is actually bringing the applicant to the city, as opposed to the city bringing the professional. Is that what you're doing?
In a sense, I would say so. What your role is to basically replace me in the process. You have a client that's interested in being certified as an MBE or a WBE. That person is saying, "Here's my materials. Can you review them? And based upon your professional opinion, would you say that I qualify to be certified as either a minority or woman-owned business or both?" So you're going to review the information, and in accordance with the regulations regarding certification, make an informed recommendation as to whether or not this person should be certified. You will then send that along with the application and supporting documents to the city. We'll look at the information, and if we agree, which we probably will, depending on your review, then the firm is certified.
Does it save the client anything to have that?
It's convenience in terms of time, we presume, because the city we're involved in, we have roughly over 2,000 certified firms, and we have 5 certification programs, so you're looking at multiples of 4,000 plus certifications actively coming through our city every year. And the time it takes to process them can average between 90 to 120 days. So in many cases, maybe in some cases, coming through a professional will short that processing time because you don't have the volume that we have. So it can be a benefit to them in that sense. Again, there are some limitations, like, for example, if the firm is involved in construction, they wouldn't be eligible for the program. If they were involved as a supplier or a distributor, they wouldn't be eligible for the program itself. Professional services, could very well be. I mean, and there are other things as well.
You had mentioned that you were looking for CPAs and attorneys. Are those the only 2 qualifications which you'll include? And could the firm or professional services firm include CPAs and attorneys without being actually a law firm or without being a CPA firm?
There are some firms that are involved in the certification process from the standpoint that they've actually worked with agencies involved with certifying and they understand the certification process. They can be considered as well.
Okay.
Primarily, though, our initial target was to look at professional attorneys as well as the CPAs, knowing that you have the discipline and background that should allow you to be able to do this.